Example, just everyday normal activities. Heart rate goes up and down, blood pressure goes up and down, temperature goes up and down, and this is a way that will help the body compensate, all right? Because it does have that ability to affect blood pressure. So we're going to look at it in relationship to normal activities. The oxytocin, yes, like I said, is in both sexes. In childbirth, now, when egg and sperm meet, fertilization occurs, one cell becomes two, two becomes four. Believe it or not, the body recognizes that as something that is a foreign object. And for the entire incubation period, it tries to get rid of that foreign object. Well, when we get close to the time for delivery and things are really crowded in there and different hormones are taking place and different activities are occurring, all right, we will get signals. Now, this will be between the uterus and the nervous system, a part of the spine, and that information will get sent to the area of the brain saying, oh, I finally get to get rid of this foreign object. So it'll release some oxytocin. That oxytocin will go and act on the uterus, and you'll be, oh, that's interesting. Okay? And you continue on a little bit later, because what happened is that contraction that you felt sent another nerve signal to the brain that said, release more oxytocin, which goes and acts on the uterus. So the next time it's like, oh, hello, okay? And that's, you know, and it keeps doing that. It's this positive feedback cycle. So the stronger the contraction, the bigger the nerve impulse to the brain, the more oxytocin, the bigger the contraction, and it continues and continues until, you know, anybody in here have given birth, you're in there and things are interesting, okay? And baby comes. And the body's finally like, thank goodness.
What do they give, like, the Pitocin or the synthetic form?
The Pitocin.
If you already, like, last time I was, like, pregnant, I was in nursing school, and I was like, I don't want the Pitocin because my body's making it. I was like, you can't tell me, but, like, why do they give it to people? If, like, your body's making it.
Kendra, can you answer that, Pam?
Because not everybody's body will do it on its own. And then, say for instance, they want you to be induced. That's the proper way to start for induction. However, it does make your contractions probably 8 times worse than what they would normally be. So that's why it's very important to prepare your body prior to getting pregnant, or when you get pregnant, preparing your body to do it on its own.
But, like, why?
And some people don't have sex while they're pregnant, which causes even more issues if you don't have sex, because sperm has oxytocin in it. So that kind of helps the effacement of the cervix.
Interesting.
Why you just don't wait, like, I don't know, some babies wait.
Because doctors like to interfere with stuff that they don't know
I
too
just
much
don't,
about.
I don't agree with that.
So if, like, that's why natural births are so important, like, are so high now, is because everybody's realizing my body can do this on its own, so now I'm not gonna let you interfere with it.
If the doctors don't want you to, they just.
Right, and that's why we decide, that's
Yeah,
why
'cause
you
you
have
know,
options.
Back when I had my son, which would have, let me see, because he was still with me, he would be going on 36. So that was a long time ago, okay? So back then, they didn't do that unless, say, like, for example, the woman started in contraction and it stopped. And they were like, ooh, okay, or the baby was in distress or whatever, before they would try that before they actually did the C-section. So yeah, the Pitocin is a way to help stimulate those labor contractions. Another thing that the oxytocin will help with is the flow of the milk in the mammary glands. And then prolactin takes over. And the prolactin works while, you know, towards the end of the pregnancy and beginning of birth and the baby being here. So one of the things that we're going to see, and it's really something that I've been trying really hard to point out already, is how we get the control over these hormones. And I can remember that probably before I, learned everything that I learned about this, I used to only associate this information with the pituitary gland. And it's because the pituitary gland is listed as that master gland, which of course is important because of the fact of what it does, but we really find that the control of hormone secretion is the hypothalamus and the brain. Okay? It's going to be based on conditions, and I realize I got a typo there, based on conditions. Now note my terminology: within the body and some of it outside the body. When we have, and I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, okay? Do you guys remember the term reflex, right? Okay, because we know that we have reflexes that occur with like our skeletal muscle, okay? We talked, I think, did we talk about reflexes with our nervous system? And like looking at the autonomic nervous system and the arc and everything that gets created. Okay, so then we're familiar with that term reflex, all right? A response to something, okay? The response that will occur with the posterior pituitary, because once again, neuroendocrine cells, nerve and endocrine, the reflex is termed neuroendocrine. Okay, I think we have that on the study guide. Okay, so that is associated with my posterior pituitary. Mostly negative feedback, because negative maintains homeostasis. Okay? I'll say that again. Negative maintains homeostasis. I want to speak a little bit more now about growth hormone before we go on to some of these other hormones. Mainly because of, I probably term it the hype. Everybody knows what I mean, right? Okay? Because a lot of times you hear growth hormone. And I think it was in my 141 class, they asked about it either yesterday or Monday. And they asked about it in reference to the like the anabolic stuff that people might take for weightlifting and stuff like that. All right, I gave them a really good example. They really liked it. I was like, oh my goodness, I got smiles. So that was good, okay? Now, growth hormone though, and the reason I mention this is because we do get a lot of hype around it. HGH is how they tend to tell us about it, okay? You'll see, now when you see that commercial, you're going to go, huh, that's the one Dr. Burnett was talking about. And you're gonna laugh and you're gonna like make the connection and you're gonna say, I'll never look at this the same way again. Okay? So, growth hormone, it doesn't have a particular target organ, mainly because it's widespread all over the body. Now, one of the things it will do, it will act on the liver, and it will get the liver to secrete what's termed a growth stimulant. We know them as IGFs. Have you ever heard of those? IGF. Insulin-like growth factors. IGF-1, IGF-2, okay? Now, the reason that these are important, they're still important as an adult, okay? But during fetal growth, something to remember, once fertilization occurs and the offspring begins to develop, one of the cells of the body that begins to develop at that time, muscle cells, all right? And as an organism is born, muscle cells, they don't duplicate, okay? What you get is what you got, all right? They'll simply increase in length and width, okay? During fetal development, these IGFs that are formed, they're very good at helping the cells carry out anabolic activities. Now, do you happen to remember what anabolic meant versus catabolic? And by looking at it energy-wise, okay, if it gives off energy, that means a bond gets broken. If it takes in energy, a bond is built up. Anabolic is the building up. So at the time of fetal development, fetal growth, okay, this becomes important. If a child, for example, is not sufficient in growth hormone, because we do, like Jacob said, we think about that in reference to them growing, okay? Baby to toddler to teenager to adult, okay? If there's anything that could be insufficient about this hormone, what happens to them?
Might not survive.
They may not survive. Might be aborted by the mother. How about well, it would be more of their stature. Okay, it could actually affect their actual height and so forth. Okay, so the growth hormone and the ability to produce these, yes, very important during times of the fetal growth, fetal development, and now as adults, it's still important to us with our skeletal muscle, okay, because we need to make sure that we're not like breaking down skeletal muscle proteins, that sort of thing. So it's still important to us. So this is one of the things that happens. These IGFs, these insulin-like growth factors, they can help promote protein synthesis. For example, if we're looking at skeletal muscle, do you guys remember actin and myosin? Okay? Lipid metabolism, either helping to store it or using it as energy. Okay? Carb metabolism, utilizing those little glucoses correctly. But it can have a glucose sparing effect. Now I'm going to explain that to you, okay?